Welcome to today's live on ServiceNow webinar, Jumpstart Your Process Analysis with Process Mining Improvement Opportunities. Who am I? Well, my name is Dan Grady. I'm part of the Process Mining Product Management team here at ServiceNow. I'm also joined by my partner in crime here today, Damien Pascal. Damien, do you want to just take a minute and introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining today, and thanks for making the time.
And another member of our process mining product management team here, Roz Parpia. I don't believe that she's on with us here today, but I did want to call her out because many of you might be interacting with her, specifically those of you customers in Europe and the EMEA region. And I also believe Bilal is on somewhere here today. He might not be on as a panelist, but many of you are probably working with Bilal. That's who we are. And those of you that have attended process mining sessions here before, you know we always love to start with this quote. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And we like the quote because it usually aligns to the reason that we've all gathered. And based on some of the Q&A, it does align to that today, right? To learn a little bit more about the ServiceNow platform and then take that knowledge, go back, apply it, get more value out of your investment with ServiceNow. And it also aligns to the solution that we'll be talking about here today, process mining, which is designed to help us x-ray the workflows that we have running in our organization and start to show us where and how we could be doing better for everyone involved. What we'll be doing here today is we do like to start with a quick little process mining 101 for those of you that have stumbled upon this webinar for the first time or process mining content for the first time. We just want to level set, get you familiar with the concept and the value that it provides. And then we'll jump into the topic of the day, which is improvement opportunities and the two different types of improvement opportunities that we offer with process mining that are designed to help jumpstart the analysis that the process analysis that you're doing and streamline your paths to process improvement opportunities. And then what we'll do after we cover those different improvement opportunities in a handful of slides, we'll jump into an instance. We'll do a quick little demo of what some of those things look like live, and then we'll create our first process mining project together and a couple of our own improvement opportunities, just so you can get a sense of how easy it is to get started with the solution. This is really a minutes type of exercise to get you visibility into your processes and start looking for improvement opportunities there. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with some additional resources above and beyond today to help you get started. As we go through all this content, you may have noticed that you're all muted, but please use the Q&A to ask your questions. Damien's going to be monitoring that during the session, answer as many as he can. And then when we get to the end of the session, we'll review that list. We'll answer some of the questions live to kind of get them out there for everyone to see. All right, away we go. Quick process mining 101. So with everything we do in life, whether it be a session like this or a business process, when we design things, we have a vision in our head for how it should play out. And when we design business processes, we design both completeness and efficiency to provide the best experience possible for as many people as possible. Now, unfortunately, what we design isn't always what plays out in reality. The reality is not all the work is going to be flowing through the optimal path, and that's going to have a negative impact on both the people requesting a service as well as the people trying to deliver that service. What we're able to do with ServiceNow process mining is use the audit log data that gets generated as work moves through a given process to help us understand and quickly visualize that reality so we can start to see where the opportunities to improve are, where the bottlenecks exist, where there's things ping-ponging between different teams, where there's things getting stuck in an on-hold state for an ungodly amount of time. And that accelerated visibility will speed up our ability to make the necessary process improvements. Now, some of you might be saying to yourself, like, hold on a second here, Dan. We already have a ton of dashboards that help give us visibility into how our processes are performing. Like, how is process mining different? Well, those dashboards are great at helping us ask and answer the what type of questions, like how many tickets, incidents, cases, claims did we work? Which types were they? How long did it take to do those things? And probably most importantly, how are we performing against our targets and are we improving our cycle times? All super important questions that you probably have dashboards in place to help you ask and answer. But here's the deal. We've probably been doing this for a little while. And one of the things that I know I've recognized is that information is one of the most addictive and contagious things out there. You give somebody a little bit and they always want more. So the first thing that happens when we get one of those dashboards out the door, before we can even high five that we got it out the door, there's somebody in leadership that typically asks questions like, why are we missing our ESAT and CSAT targets? Why are we missing our closure times? Or why are they trending in that direction? Like, why? And the answers to those follow-up why questions, they typically don't live in those dashboards. They live in process mining. Process mining allows us to start asking and answering all those follow-up questions about the things we're seeing in those higher level dashboards. Things like, where is the process getting stuck? Where is there any sort of unnecessary rework happening? Where are we spending or wasting the most time? Which vendors are speeding us up and which ones are slowing us down? And my all-time personal favorite, I've been asked for this report so many times in my life, I've actually given it a name. I like to call it the finger pointing report. Everybody wants to know who's holding on to the work the longest. I need to know who's holding on to the work the longest. Or if you're more glass half full, we call that the opportunity to improve report. These are all the types of questions that process mining allows us to start asking and answering. Essentially, we like to say, getting us to the why behind our KPIs. And we can apply this process mining capability to a single table process like this incident example here, where we're looking at how the incidents are moving from state to state in the process and the volume and velocity behind those transitions. Or one of the more popular examples is the finger pointing report. So instead of looking at how work is moving from state to state in the process, we can apply this to how things and work are moving from assignment group to assignment group and who's holding on to the work the longest and where are our long running transitions? Where do we have multi-hop situations? So we can start streamlining those things, educating teams, maybe applying some predictive or task intelligence to get the work to the right place the first time. If you happen to be using us for a more robust workflow, let's say like this onboarding case here that you're seeing on the screen, where you have a high-level onboarding case, a bunch of activity sets that have subtasks and requests, we offer something up called multi-dimensional maps that give us that end-to-end visibility into the entire process. These multi-dimensional maps are super handy for any of the requests that you have running through your ServiceNow request catalogs. If you think about the two primary bottlenecks that exist in any request process, you have that approval step where you have things waiting for approvals for unseemly amounts of times, and then you have the fulfillment tests themselves. Those two things live in different places on the ServiceNow platform. So if you really want to understand where you're leaking air from your process mining tire, from your request process tires, you want to be looking at the data in this way using one of these multi-dimensional maps. And then lastly, heaven forbid you happen to be running a process outside of the ServiceNow platform on a different system. It does happen from every now and then. We do offer up that ability to ingest external process data and allow to apply this process mining capability to that data as well. So you can start to identify where there's inefficiencies in those processes and potentially give you a path towards reimagining that process on the ServiceNow platform to make it more efficient. All right, so now some of you might be thinking to yourself like, hey, those process maps, they look really powerful, but I wouldn't even know where to begin. Like, I know that was my first reaction the first time I saw a visualized process map. And the good news is that process mining on the ServiceNow platform isn't just about those visualized process maps that you're seeing here. Process mining also comes with something called improvement opportunities that guide you by calling out inefficiencies and opportunities to improve before you even get to the map, like streamlining our process analysis efforts. And those improvement opportunities are what we're going to be focusing on in this session here as we move forward. Now, I always like to think of every organization as a beach full of process inefficiencies. And process mining can act as the metal detector we use to help us find these inefficiencies, beeping louder in some spots than others, so we know where to prioritize digging a little bit deeper. And I don't want to sugarcoat things, like process mining isn't magic, right? There's going to be additional digging to get to the actionable information, right? Process mining is a verb for a reason. But combing a beach for opportunities is way easier with the metal detector than without. The piece of the ServiceNow process mining solution that's going to be doing that beeping is known as improvement opportunities. And these can be included in every process mining project you generate across any workflow or process you choose to mine. These improvement opportunities come in two flavors: rule-based, for inefficiencies that you may have a hypothesis about and you just want to validate and capture some data to better understand the inefficiency. Or we also have automated opportunities for those situations where you don't know what you don't know about your process and you're looking for some guidance. An example of a rule-based might be, show me all the situations where a piece of work is being transferred from level one, but ultimately winds back with that same level one team. An example of an automated opportunity might be flag all the rework situations on state changes of my incidents. So the solution will flag all the situations where work goes from A to B to C back to A in a process. And we're going to dive much deeper into both of those, but the combination of these two give anyone doing process analysis a huge head start. So they aren't just starting with an entire beach, not knowing where to begin. Now, these improvement opportunities, they get surfaced on the summary and insights page that gets generated in every process mining project, along with the analyst workbench, which is what we call the visualized process map. Each opportunity surfaced, whether it be rule-based or automated, comes with some stats to help us make decisions about whether we want to dig deeper or not. For example, we can see the first opportunity on the list flagged incidents that went into the state of awaiting caller info at some point of their life cycle. And that occurred in 8,127, or 38% of the total incidents that we mined in this project. On average, they sat in awaiting caller info for 2 days. And probably the most important number there is that 42 years. There's 42 years worth of time packaged up in these incidents moving in and out of an awaiting caller info state. Like, even if an organization can reclaim 1 or 2% of that 42 years, that's going to be a win. Now, this is an example of a rule-based opportunity because we specifically configured process mining to look for that exact scenario of touching a waiting caller. The next one on the list is an example of an automated opportunity. The solution flagged rework on the in-progress state, meaning those 2027 incidents touched the state of in progress at some point and then went back into that state later on. This is typically an indication of a quality issue. And just like the prior, we can see the magnitude of the opportunity, 33 years of time packaged up in rework loops involving the in-progress state. The reason we call this an automated opportunity is we just told the solution to look for the pattern of A to B to C back to A without configuring anything specific other than the type of detector that we wanted to use and the field that we wanted to apply it to. It's going to surface a lot of opportunities for us. Now, for every opportunity that gets surfaced, you have a number of actions you can take to continue to explore the opportunity. You could drill down to the records themselves, use AI and ML to get some root cause guidance or summarize some of the unstructured data in the descriptions or the work notes. And of course, you can drill into the visualized process map in the workspace for just the work that is linked to that opportunity. It significantly reduces the amount of noise on those process maps, streamlining your path to something that you can actually action on. Now, these same improvement opportunities can be surfaced on dashboards. So we can enlighten those business stakeholders who might not even know what process mining is about the potential opportunity to improve the process that they're responsible for. So every opportunity that gets surfaced in that process mining workspace can be linked to a key performance indicator or KPI. And if that KPI is placed on a dashboard, any improvement opportunity linked to the KPI can be surfaced on the insights panel on that dashboard on the right-hand side of the screen. This really helps us extend the reach of process mining and the power that it provides from an insights perspective and gets more people involved in the process improvement conversation. It's one of the things that we find with process mining is that not a lot of people know that it even exists, first of all. And then when they do find out that it exists, they realize there's a lot of power there. And what it does is get more and more people involved in conversations around process improvement because now we have data driving those conversations rather than just hunches or gut feels. Now, let's just take a moment to run through each of the types of improvement opportunities, and then we're going to jump into an instance and demonstrate how to create a few, right? There are currently 7 automated, I like to call them opportunity detectors or definitions. I like to call them detectors because they really are just detecting patterns in the data for us. That's why I call them detectors, but the official term is definitions, I guess. The first one is the rework. And rework allows us to look for those things that touch a certain step of a process and eventually then touch that same step later on in the process. Rework opportunities are usually good sources of quality issues that you can work on or training opportunities inside of an organization. Ping pong allows us to capture scenarios where things are bouncing back and forth between steps of a process. This is very useful when you start to apply process mining to that assignment group or finger pointing report that I talked about earlier. Right? It helps us identify situations where you have work bouncing back and forth between different teams or groups. I've also heard of this is called as the hot potato cases inside of an organization. So we have a detector that just looks and flags all those situations for us, and will surface them on the summary and insights page for us. Extra step allows us to identify route variants that have one additional step that could be slowing us down. So, for example, we may have a design path of assigned to work in progress to resolved, and that's the most optimal path, right? But this detector is going to flag situations where there's an additional step in the process for whatever reason that could be slowing us down. Very often, these are things like on hold or waiting call or steps, which might be a very valid part of the complete process. But if we can reduce the amount of times that these occur, that's going to be a win for us and drive more efficiency and make the process run faster. Now, slow transitions could be my favorite. It identifies clusters of records whose process transitions take significantly longer than the norm. So, for example, let's say 85% of your work is taking less than 2 hours to go from, let's say, a new to an in progress state, but there's a subset that's taking longer than 8 days. It's going to flag that subset. Super useful for both state transitions and assignment group transitions. Like, hey, let's say you do have a situation where level 1 is getting some tickets and they transfer to level 2. That's just your triaging process. And let's say level 1 is really good and they're transferring it in less than an hour, typically. But you know what? You got a handful in which is taking them longer than 2 days to make the transfer. It's going to flag that situation for us and then allow us to start digging deeper into that. Really, really helpful slow transitions. Extreme duration is similar to slow transitions. The big difference is that instead of comparing the duration to another cluster of records, it's comparing the durations to the median, and looking for work that is taking significantly longer than the median values. It's really helpful in just identifying those outliers that are fun to look at or sad to look at in some cases, but also helping us kind of get an understanding of like things that might be skewing some of the averages we're seeing in other places on the screen. Extreme repetitions is the same concept, only it's not comparing durations. It's looking at how many times certain transitions are happening in a process and highlighting situations where the transition is happening an obscene amount of times. And this is very often a symptom of an overactive or wrongly configured business rule that you have somewhere on the platform or as part of a business process. Repeating patterns. This is the last automated opportunity, the 7 we have today. More coming in future releases. So if you're excited about these, guess what? You got more coming. Repeating pattern looks for a series of consecutive steps that is repeating, hence the term repeating pattern. Those are usually good for identifying potential automation or routing rule enhancements. If we start seeing a same pattern over and over again, like, hey, what's going on here? Is there any way that we can actually improve this by creating a rule to get things to the right place the first time instead of looping through a bunch of stuff? All right, so those are the automated ones. And as I mentioned earlier, great for situations where you don't know what you don't know. But we also give you this ability to create rule-based opportunities for very specific situations that you want to know more about. These are great for those situations where you want to isolate work, let's say taking longer than a certain time frame to move between different steps, or sitting in an on-hold state for longer than a week, or situations where you want to focus on work touching certain groups as part of their life cycle. One common example is isolating work that takes longer than 2 minutes, but less than 15 to move from in progress to resolved. This is a great way to find self-service or automation opportunities because if the work is taking less than 2 minutes, you've likely already automated it. But if it's taking longer than 2 and less than 15, it's probably not automated, but it's not overly complex or doesn't require a lot of problem solving from a human. So these are potentially good for self-service and automation opportunities. So that's one specific rule-based scenario, obviously completely configurable. That's the idea of creating the rules. But one way we see lots of customers using the rule-based to identify automation opportunities. Another common rule-based opportunity we see customers go after is idle time. Like, show me all the work that maybe takes longer than 2 days to go from a new to in progress state, but less than 2 hours to go from in progress to resolve. Like, how much time is lost waiting for that work just to start? Is it a staffing issue, a routing issue? Like, what's going on there? Could we actually improve that in some way to reclaim some of that idle time and get the work to completion faster, making the people requesting the service more productive? And then the last rule-based opportunity that I'll touch here is approval bottlenecks. Like, any customer using the ServiceNow request catalog has at least one, probably many more request processes that have an approval step that's slowing them down. Recently, I was working with a customer, and we used this technique. And what we did is we isolated a very specific requested item, and we said, show me all the situations where we have approvals that are taking longer than 2 days. And what it came back with, or what we saw in our improvement opportunity, was that there were 727 of these requested items that had an approval step taking longer than 2 days, adding up to 7 years. 7 years of time spent waiting for approval. And that was just 1 month's worth of requested item. So 7 years worth of time waiting for approval. The fulfillment tasks associated to those 727 requests only took 7 days to get to closure in total. So 7 years of time waiting for an approval for 7 days of actual work time. Like, come on, we got to be able to do better. And the real kicker there was that those were approved 99% of the time. Like, it just help them build a business case for why they don't even need the approval. And by removing that approval step, how much time they'd be able to give back to the organization from a productivity perspective. Huge win, very, very common use case, and a very good way to use these improvement opportunities to isolate that specific situation. There's so many opportunities that customers find using these improvement opportunities before they even get to that visualized process map. A couple of my favorites, that one we just talked about, the approval step. Another one, we had a customer that had an automation that would put people into Active Directory groups. But when that automation failed, guess what? It created a manual task for somebody to complete. What they found with process mining is that automation was failing about 2,200 times a month, creating 2,200 manual tasks on average. The average closure time of those 2,200 manual tasks was 25 hours, I think, adding up to about 7 years of productivity time per month that somebody had to spend just putting people in Active Directory groups, something they already had an automation for. When they dug into it, what they identified is that they just had to improve the intake form. The intake form allowed someone to put somebody from one domain into a group in another domain, creating a cross-domain mismatch, which caused the automation to fail. They simply adjusted the intake form. Guess what? Reduced that manual tasks that were being created in the automation failure significantly. And what they told me actually afterwards, they said, Dan, it was actually a double inefficiency because people were calling the service desk to check the status of those tasks that were failing. Check the status of those tasks that were created when the automation failed. So not only did they reduce the number of manual tests, they reduced the service desk calls as well, a double win for the organization. Another organization that we work with, what they found is they had about half or a third of the tickets that were coming into a specific group were sitting there for longer than a day in the new state waiting to be assigned. And the total like 400 days per year, just waiting for things, idle time, like we were talking about earlier. And what they did to adjust it is that they had no routing rules associated to it. It's simply the work went into a queue and the humans were responsible for picking it up when they were available. They enabled round robin assignment capabilities on the platform, and they reclaimed about 400 days by doing that. Just lots of opportunities, and these improvement opportunities, both the rule-based and automated, help streamline customers' organizations to finding those process improvement opportunities. All right. Let's jump into an instance and just take a look at some of these live and how they kind of work. So where I'm at is I'm in the process mining workspace right now, and the Zoom stuff is getting in the right way here. If you're not familiar with the process mining workspace, and guess what? You can come down here. You can find it right from your workspace lists. Just so the group knows, if you're at the Xanadu level, whether you're entitled to process mining or not, you're going to find this process mining workspace in your instance. And as of Xanadu, we've enabled process mining in production instances and put an evaluation project there for you to just try it out. So just to get a little taste, and what that'll allow you to do will mine incidents that have closed in the last 7 days, up to 3,600 records. So you get a little taste of process mining on your own data if you're interested. So you can find process mining workspace right from your workspace list. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this process analysis project here. And it's going to take me to that summary and insights page for the data that we mined in this case. In this case, we mined 27,000 incidents. They took 1,700 different routes to get to closure. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here to the improvement opportunities list that got generated based on that data that we just mined, and both the rule-based and automated opportunities that we configured for this project or used for this project. And the first one that I'm going to see is just like the one we talked about in the slides. We've got the work that is going into the awaiting caller info state, and we got these 8,310 that match that condition, or 31% of that 27,000. The average duration that things are sitting in this awaiting caller info state is about 2 days. And again, that total inefficiency number, 43 years worth of time packaged up in these incidents moving in and out of that awaiting caller info state. And what we can do is we can just start to look at these. And if we wanted to, we'd be able to drill down, get into the workbench for these, show the records if we wanted to drill into the records, use some machine learning to do some clustering on the unstructured data inside of here, or run some root cause analysis. So we'll take some of those actions in a second. The reason, though, that we call this an rule-based one is because we specifically configured this situation of looking for incidents that go into the awaiting caller info state. Now, the next one on the list is an example of one of those more automated ones. It's a type of rework, and it flagged rework on that awaiting caller info state. So what we see here is these 1,200 incidents, right, or 5% of the total. And they went into the awaiting caller info state once, and then looped back and went back into the awaiting caller info state again. In fact, one even did it 9 times. So whereas 8,000 incidents touched the awaiting caller info state at least once, this rework detector flagged the situations in which incidents went into awaiting caller info more than once. And there's 24 years worth of time packaged in those. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill down to the visualized process map for just that subset of incidents that went into the awaiting caller info state more than once. Excuse me. And what we can see here is there's those 1,200 that we just, the 1,238 that we just drilled down to. That's what's on the map now. And I'll zoom in a little bit on the map here, just to make it a little bit bigger. And if I click on this awaiting caller info state, what you'll notice right away in the histogram that's on the screen here is I've got nothing that touched awaiting caller info once, right? This is a distribution of the repetitions, the number of times that these things are touching the awaiting caller info state. So what I can do is, like, I see a lot of these touch the awaiting caller info state twice, but maybe I just want to focus in on the situations in which these incidents went into awaiting caller info more than twice. And I can use this histogram to act as a filter and narrow it down to just those. So I'll narrow it down to just those things that went into awaiting caller info more than 2 times. And then what I can do is I can start to use my breakdowns on the left-hand side of the screen to look at these by assignment group, or let's say category or priority, and what's going on there. Maybe we want to look at the things that came in via self-service, because look at this. I mean, my demo data is kind of messed up here, but look, 9 months, the majority of these came in via self-service. Let's look at those things that are coming in via self-service and going into awaiting caller info state 3 or more times, and narrow it down to that 196. And then what do we do next? Well, right, one of the biggest advantages to being an in-platform process mining solution is the fact that I can always get down to the detailed records themselves if I have the right to, right? One of the things that's really important to understand about process mining is that process mining is good at identifying where the bottlenecks are and the slow parts of the process and the inefficiencies, but understanding what to do about those very often involves getting down to the detailed records themselves within the process and understand the work that people are actually doing. The fact that we can enable people to get to that level of detail is really, really powerful. And then we also have machine learning techniques on the platform and AI that allows us to start to look at that unstructured data and harvest some of the rich gold that lives inside of there and do some clustering. So we can see things like, hey, there's a whole bunch of these situations in which people are reporting Mac issues with Outlook that we want to focus in on, or they can't connect securely to when they log into their PC. And of course, we can drill into these. So lots of powerful ways to interact with the data. But the key here is that those improvement opportunities streamlined our path into the things that we should be digging into deeper on the map, rather than us starting with the map itself and figuring out where to go next. That metal detector, right? The metal detector concept, right? These things here, these improvement opportunities, by using the total inefficiency, that's the beep of the metal detector, the thing that's going to beep louder in some areas than others and give us some direction in terms of where do we want to continue digging into the data and looking for opportunities to improve. You can't act on everything. You need something to help guide the things you action on. Now, we drilled into the map there, but here's one of those rule-based ones that I was talking about earlier, right? The automation opportunities, things taking longer than 2 minutes, but less than 15, like low manual effort types of opportunities. In this case, it flagged 836 of these that met that criteria inside of there. And instead of drilling into the map this time, right, I can get directly to the records, or, I can come in here and I can run some root cause analysis on this right from the screen, not even seeing the map. And this will start to show me some of the leading influencers or causes of those situations that met that improvement opportunity. Or I can come in here and again, I can run that clustering. In this case, what it'll show me is that I've got a whole bunch of password reset issues on this Oracle EBS application. That is totally something that we should be able to automate. And I've just used an improvement opportunity, flagged it, run some machine learning or AI on it to kind of cluster what's happening within those tickets at the unstructured level. And I've identified an automation opportunity in a matter of minutes, potentially. Huge power here using these automation these opportunities on this page, both the rule-based and the automated. Now, before we actually go and create one of these, I did want to show another example because we were looking at just how things were moving from state to state in that example. I did want to call out specifically because this is a very popular and powerful way in which customers get value out of process mining. We can apply those to situations where we're looking at how things are moving from assignment group to assignment group in the project. So in this case here, I've got HR cases that are being reassigned 2 or more times. In fact, there's 556 of these 2,500 or 22% in which that was true. And I can see there's 6 years of time packaged up in these situations where work is being transferred from team to team. And then right from here, what can I do? Well, I can drill into the visualized process map of just those bouncing from team to team. And what you'll see on the map here is I've got situations in which work is moving from team to team in the process and the volume and velocity of those transitions rather than looking at how things are moving from state to state in the process. So I can expand the map. Maybe I see here I've got this volume of tickets that are going from global people care to global talent. On average, it's taking them 2 days to make that transition or 1 year of total time. And just like you saw me do before, I can get to the records. I can do some work notes analysis. So instead of looking at the short descriptions and the descriptions, a lot of the valuable information lives within the work notes themselves around those transfers. We give you the ability to start analyzing those with machine learning and AI. Or I can come in here and I can run that clustering again just to see, hey, look, we've got a bunch of those that are general inquiry. That makes sense that they're being transferred. But like these HR system support or an address change, that's totally something that I should have a self-service option for or be able to get to the right place the first time without having to triage that. So maybe I want to look at those and how we're intaking those and routing those through the organization. Just so you can see, as we start to identify all these different opportunities, one of the important parts of the solution is this ability to create continual improvement initiatives or automation center requests. Both of these are applications on the platform that help us capture, track, and prioritize all these improvement opportunities that we're finding. One of the things that you recognize very quickly when you start using process mining is that there's going to be no shortage of opportunities to improve. You're not going to be able to act on them all at once. You need to have a place in which you capture these things to make sure they don't get lost in the shuffle and that we hold people accountable to following up on them. Because look, insights are great, but if you don't action them, you don't really recognize all the value of understanding that you have problems in your organization that you could fix. These help us kind of make sure we hold people accountable. All right, so you've seen a lot of different examples, a lot of stuff that we could potentially do here. Now the question is, like, this is amazing, Dan. Like, how hard is this to do? Like, is it going to take me an army of people to get this stood up? And the answer to that question is no. I always like to joke that if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, or if you can build a ServiceNow report, you can start to visualize your processes and recognize some of these improvement opportunities in a matter of minutes. And we're going to do those minutes right now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new project. And we're going to call this project Live On Now. And then the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pick the table that we want to mine. Any process data you have on the platform is available for mining, right? Or if you happen to ingest any external process data, you can apply process mining to that as well. I'm using incident data here just because that's my richest set of demo data, but this could be HR cases that you just saw, it could be customer service cases. We just worked with an organization the other day in which we were looking at trade reconciliation cases that were coming in. We looked at some insurance claims the other day. Like, it could be anything. Damien actually just ran a session on risk management issues that we were tracking and looking for opportunities to improve that process. So we pick our table and we hit Create Project. I think I hit Create Project. And I did. And then what we're going to do when we get on the screen here is we got a couple of things we need to configure. The first thing that we need to configure is like what incidents, in this case, do we want to mine? So they were just adding filter criteria to narrow down our set of data, just like we would do with the report on the ServiceNow platform. We always like to guide customers to focusing on work that has completed the process. Yes, you could mine open work, but like now you're comparing apples to oranges. Like, let's look, if we're trying to improve a process, let's look at work that's completed the process. And then you can start doing things like timeframes and categories and only show me work that's being generated via self-service in different channels. I don't have a specific use case here, so I'm just going to keep it to this set of data here. That's the work that's closed, and I'm going to hit save. Then what you need to do, and this is the only thing you absolutely have to do, is you need to start adding what are known as activities. What are the things that are changing about these, in this case, incidents or records over time that we want to use to help us identify opportunities to improve? Very often, we're looking at how things are moving from state to state in the process. But you also saw that we could use, let's say, assignment group as an activity to look at how things are moving from assignment group to assignment group in the project. I'm going to include both of these on my process map that we're going to generate here. You can put multiple activities on a single map. I tend to think that the maps start to get a little messy the more you add, but you have the ability to do it. And then you can toggle the different views on and off. Of course, you're going to want to have some of those breakdowns. Remember when I sliced and diced the map from the left-hand side using things like assignment group, category, contact type, or channel, right? We can add those right here. And now that's the base. But of course, this whole session is about those improvement opportunities, both the rule-based and automated. So we're going to go and add those. Just so you know, for the workflows that we have on the platform, like incident, problem, change, HR case, customer service management, we offer content packs to help jumpstart you and give you a library of some common improvement opportunities. And those content packs can be added to your instance, and then you can start to pull from a library some of those opportunities to improve, right, from that library. So that's what I'm going to do here. But you also have the ability to obviously create your own. And this is super easy, and I want you to see how you create these. So I'm going to come here to new, and we're going to create a couple of automated and a couple of rule-based together very quickly. The first one that we're going to do is let's just add a rework opportunity on the state field. So we'll find rework here. We'll hit create, and we'll call this one rework. And we'll say it's on the state field. Here's our pattern type, rework that we selected, but there's all the other ones we can choose. What field do we want to look for rework on? Well, let's look for rework on the state field. Typically, if there's rework, it's going to be a quality situation. And then I mentioned earlier that you can link these to KPIs to start to surface these on dashboards. If we, that have that KPI on it, this is where you would configure that. And then there's some additional configuration. We're not going to do that here today. That's it. We just created a rework pattern detector or inefficiency detector. Super easy to do, right? Click, 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 we're done. Maybe we'll want to add a ping pong detector on the assignment group field. So we'll just call this one ping pong. The type will be ping pong. What field do we want to look for ping ponging on? Remember AB, AB, AB. Let's look for assignment group. And maybe that's an automation opportunity if we flag any ping pong. So I'm going to skip the KPI thing in the interest of time. And then maybe we'll just look for ping pong if it's only happening 2 times, not 3 in this subset of data. And we'll hit save. So those are some automated ones, like really easy, super straightforward to configure. There's all those different detectors that you can choose from. But now let's add some rule-based ones for those situations like where we have a very specific thing that we want to call out. Maybe we want to look for multi-hop situations, right? So we have that ping pong detector that's looking for all the unique situations where things are going from one group to group. But maybe we want to create one of these opportunities to look for situations like holistically when things are touching multiple groups. So we'll come here, we'll just give it a name, and then we'll start to build out our chain of rules that we want to look for. So we'll say assignment group is anything. And then, you know what, find all the situations where that's directly followed by, could be eventually, but let's say directly followed by assignment group is anything. And we'll save and exit this. So now we've created a rule-based situation where it's going to go and flag all the multi-hop situations where there's 2 teams that get touched in the process or 2 assignment groups that are involved in a process. Maybe we'll add one more rule-based one. Let's add that. We can do two. Let's add an idle time rule. So let's say we want to go here, and this is going to impact performance of the process. That's not how you spell idle, but you guys know what I mean. And we'll say, let's say, all right, show me all the situations where the state is new, and it's the first time that the state goes into the new state, and then is eventually followed by the state of in progress, and you know what? We want to add some constraints to say we only care about situations where that transition is taking longer than, let's say, 2 days to happen. Like something's sitting there waiting for the work to start or in a new state before it moves to in progress for 2 days. And we'll add that constraint and we'll save and exit. So that's idle time. What this will do is it's going to catch all the incidents, in this case, that taking longer than 2 days to go from new to an in progress state. And since we're here and these aren't hard to do, let's just look at that automation opportunities one that we see customers getting a lot of value out of. So we'll just say automation ops. And we'll say this is category of automation. And we'll hit configure. And we'll say, okay, show me all the situations where things are sitting in an in progress state. Say in progress, the first time it goes in there, and then it's directly followed by a state of resolved. And that's the last time. And you know what? We'll add a constraint of, we'll say this is auto, start 1, start 2. And we only care about the situations where it's taking longer than 2 minutes, but maybe less than 30 minutes here, right? To move from an in progress to a resolve state. So not automated already, but also not taking a lot of thinking or work from a human. We got to be able to identify some automations in there. And great, now we've created all these automation opportunities. Now we're done. We can hit review in mind. So what I wanted you to see there is we just created 5 improvement opportunities detectors, like 5, and it's going to surface a whole bunch of stuff. That's it. Like that took all of, I wasn't timing myself, but like 5 minutes. I just looked at the clock. We've only been speaking for 42 minutes. So regardless of how long that was, it wasn't a long amount of time because I'm long-winded and probably spent 30 minutes on the slides here. So super easy to do, super easy to get started. What's happening now is it's going out, it's harvesting the data based on the filter criteria and all the configurations we just put in from the audit log. It takes that, it passes it off to the machine learning infrastructure in your data center, do all the heavy duty number crunching and compute. So there's no impact on the performance of your instance. Once it's done with that, it's going to spit the finished model back into the instance, clean up everything in that machine learning infrastructure, and away we go. This is the piece that gets customers super excited about our approach to process mining, is they see the power that it provides in terms of visibility into their process and how it's performing. And then when they see what it takes to stand it up, they recognize that this isn't an implementation. It's simply something that they can turn on and then in a matter of minutes get going and started with. Like most of the time we're able to turn this on with a customer and in less than an hour, we're already identifying opportunities to improve the processes inside of their organization. Huge win and value add. And these improvement opportunities, as you've seen throughout today, are a big part of the solution above and beyond just the visualized process maps themselves. They're really helpful in streamlining how we get to the actionable insights and helping us prioritize the things that we should be focusing on because they give us visibility into the magnitude of the opportunity that exists. So now that that's done, I'll just come in here to my summary and insights page. And you'll start to see all the different improvement opportunities that got generated for me through those simple configurations that we just did. Rule-based ones that we added from a library, the idle time one that we flagged here, the multi-hop situations that we flagged here, and then those automated ones around rework and some of the ping-ponging that's going on inside of the organization. All right, really quick, really easy, powerful improvement opportunities, useful in getting started. All right, let's come back over here. All right, I'm going to pause now. If you've got questions, I hope that you've been putting your questions in the Q&A throughout. But if you haven't been, now's a good time to get those questions in and we'll start answering. It looks like There have been a lot of questions, and Damien's been pretty good at getting to them. So, Damien, since you've answered a bunch of these, are there any that we think we should call out and kind of answer live here for the
Yeah.
group?
Yeah, so there's a couple I noticed that I left in the open that I thought I think you already touched upon, and we may want to just revisit. First,
Sure.
comparing process mining to performance analytics, right? Where they complement each other and how they differ. So if you want to go through that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, process mining and platform analytics are extremely complementary solutions. We often like to talk the what and the why, and just from a point of reference, not that it matters all that much, but I've been at ServiceNow for almost 9 years. The first 5 of my years at ServiceNow was spent primarily working with customers on platform analytics. The platform analytics capabilities are great at helping us track and trend key performance indicators over time. But when we start seeing things trending in the wrong direction, yes, you can drill down into a platform analytics KPI and kind of see a breakdown of which team might be the slowest, or which category of work might be taking the longest time or influencing that trend the most. But in terms of understanding what might be impacting, like why that KPI is trending in that direction, this is where process mining comes in, right? Right from a key performance indicator, you can drill down and mine the data behind the spike that you're seeing. And that starts to give you the answers in terms of why the process is slowing down and what's causing it to be slow. Where are things getting stuck? All of those different questions that I laid out up front, really important piece to the puzzle. So I always like to say, I heard an analogy one time that one of my colleagues gave me, that like he compared reporting on the reporting on the platform. Let's just the core operational reporting to like a scoreboard at a game. Right? Let's say it tells you the home team is up 28-27. It tells you how much time is left in the game, how many timeouts each team has, which is all super useful information. That's operational reporting. And in the moment, that's what you need. But what it doesn't tell you is that the home team's best player just got hurt 2 minutes ago. It gives you no um, it doesn't tell you that the visitors just scored 27 straight points. It gives you no visibility into the momentum inside of the game. And you would hope that you're going to coach or manage the game differently based on the momentum. What platform analytics does above and beyond the operational reporting is it gives you visibility into the momentum that you have inside of your organization around the performance of your KPIs. And then what we do now with process mining is we layer in the aspect of the fact, what if we could give you the playbook, right? The playbook of the other team that will help you kind of come up with a strategy to give you a win in that game. That's what process mining does. It gives you the playbook and how you can actually start to improve your metrics over time in the KPIs so you can win from an organizational perspective and continue to win over and over and over again for your business. Right? They're very complementary solutions, but if you use them all together, they're really, really powerful. Now, that being said, I do want to call out, you do not need to be using the operational reporting and platform analytics on the platform to use process mining, but they are very complementary if you do choose to use them together. All right. What else do you got, Damien?
So I think the next one that I left open, I think you answered it honestly. It just talked about, hey, can that finger pointing report you talked about, which everyone loves, can you do
Yeah.
this without process mining? And I think you somewhat answered the question.
Yeah.
The reports will tell you that it's what's happening, it doesn't tell you why, right? And that's what process
Yeah. Like
is important.
one of the things, so that report about like who's holding on to the work the longest, could you do it on the platform? Yes, there is a way to get there, potentially using metric definitions on the platform, creating views and joins. It's not easy to do from a reporting perspective. And it certainly doesn't give you all the flexibility to interact with it and understand how work is moving that process mining does. So could you get there and create a report that maybe answers some of the questions from a finger pointing perspective? Yes. Is it way easier and much more interactive from an analysis perspective to do it with process mining? Absolutely. So it's a little bit of both. Yes, you probably could do it, but you're not going to get as much. It's not going to be as easy, and you're not going to nearly get as much insight or value as you would if you're using process mining to do it. Someone mentioned about the data. Somebody's asking a question about the data, kind of how we're doing it, right? So we've designed the solution in a way that we don't want to impact any of the performance of your instance. So what we do is every data center, from a ServiceNow perspective, all of your instances They have a machine learning infrastructure in that data center. That machine learning infrastructure is used to do things like task or predictive intelligence. It's used to do things like virtual agent, natural language understanding. All the other AI and ML solutions use that same infrastructure in your data center. We use that to do all the heavy lifting, so we don't do any hard work on the instance itself. So there will be no performance impact to your actual instance when you start using process mining. In terms of like, what if there's a lot of data? Don't worry about that. Like, we've used process mining on large volumes of data, millions and millions of records. So I wouldn't worry about the volume of the data. The other thing that I will mention on that is people often ask, like, how much data can you mine? We don't really care. But the reality is, like, why mine 7 years worth of data? You're trying to improve your process as it's performing today. So usually a month or a quarter's worth of data is a good set of data for a given process to help you understand what the inefficiencies are today. Like, do you really want to be fixing inefficiencies that you had 7 years ago? I would hope that your processes evolve and things have changed and those inefficiencies don't exist anymore. And if they do, guess what? You're probably going to still see them in the last month or quarter's worth of data. So usually it's a much smaller data set than you think. It's not like we're doing any predictions here. We would need a large volume of data to train the model. We're simply just showing you the reality of what's going on. What other questions do we got here? Anything else that's in here, Damien, that you think are worth that we should answer live?
Let me take a quick,
I'm looking, there was a question about the level of effort. I think we answered that one by showing that.
Yep.
Just a question on interactions. So we use interactions linking some of the like incidents, requests, and changes. And can you use process mining for that? Yeah, if you remember back to the beginning of the presentation where we showed a couple of different examples, those multi-dimensional maps where you can link together different parts of the process, those are very good for looking at interaction records and kind of how they're farming the work out to those other processes. So we've definitely seen customers do that. Just a question about kind of like, hey, you notice process mining in your Xanadu instance when you upgrade your instance when you upgrade it to Xanadu. What are the limitations there? Just a reminder. So if you see that evaluation project, the name of the evaluation project will give you the limitations. It will allow you to mine 7 days worth of incidents up to 3,600 records. And that's all it's going to allow you to do. You're not going to be able to create new projects. You're not going to be able to filter or change or adjust any of the filters in the project. It's simply there to kind of give you a taste of what process mining might look like with your data.
I do want to highlight, Dan, that customers have the option for in their sub-production environments to test further in different use cases as well.
Oh, here's one. What is the significance of the little green diamond icons and the red clock next to the wand icons on the list of improvement opportunities? Those little icons, the wand indicates that it's an automated improvement opportunity versus a rule-based one. That's what the wand indicates. The clock and the diamond, what those are tied to is the category of improvement opportunity. There's 4 categories: conformance, automation, performance, and quality. So depending on what you trick, you're going to get a little different icon. Really, that's the only thing that the selection of the categories are good for. What icon is going to show up next to it? It's not very actionable in any way, shape, or form.
Hey, Dan, I just saw one question that came in the chat versus the Q&A. So as Dan mentioned earlier, in Xanadu, you get process mining installed by default, and you get that evaluation project along with it.
Yeah, perfect. Question that just came in: can we schedule a mining job? Absolutely. And just one of the things, since we're here, and I'm going to come back to this now and just show this real quick. Yes, 100%. You can schedule process mining jobs, and when you start to kind of get projects in a state in which you like it, you should schedule them to run. We have customers that use this, get a project they like for a certain process, and then what they do is they start to use it in their bi-weekly, monthly, weekly stand-up calls. And what will happen when you do start to schedule these is you'll get different versions of the project, and these versions are good for doing comparisons. So I can start to now compare side by side different regions, different teams, different aspects of a given process. And one of the more popular ways to use this comparison capability is to do before and after a process change analysis. So I can come in here and I can say, hey, show me all the work that, let's say, closed prior to a process change on this side. And then over here, show me all the work that closed after a process changed. Whoops. Something's going on with my internet connection today, but I can't get that to show up properly for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose this because I can't scroll down there right now. But now I can do this side-by-side comparison of before and after a process change to see if there was any adverse effects or if we're making the improvements that we expected. Instead of doing that before and after with the filter there, I could also do that before and after using different versions of the process that's been scheduled over time. So if we have that scheduling coming in, maybe I want to look at this week versus last week, this month versus the month before. Very, very powerful way to start using this comparison feature is looking at kind of how things are moving over time within a given process. Let's see. So we got that one. Any others that we didn't get to yet? I think we're good.
We're good.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. So if you'll get one more chance to ask and answer questions, but as you're thinking of them and putting them in, let's just cover the remaining content. Are there other ways for you to learn more about this? Absolutely. There's probably 250 hours of Damien, myself, Roz, Bilal's voice on the internet if you want to learn more. Some good resources, though, is there is an on-demand training, a now learning training course out there called Process Mining Essentials. We've just updated it to the Xanadu level. So the nice thing about that is if you go sign up for that course, it does have a hands-on lab component. So it does spin up an instance for you to use to get hands-on if you don't want to play around with it with your own instances. So that's something that I would check out if I were you. There is a process mining community product hub. We post tons of content there. If you've got questions that we don't answer here today, you feel free to post it there. We answer those questions on a daily basis. So check that out. We do have a very useful article. As I mentioned, there's lots of content out there. If you search up Guide to Getting Started with ServiceNow Process Mining, we've tried to consolidate like the initial curriculum. Like if you're brand new to process mining, here's the 4 or 5 things that you should watch just to get started, get your feet wet, learn how to create projects and things like that. So try that Guide to Getting Started. It's a great index of like suggestive content, if you will. In addition to these live on now sessions, we do host something called the Process Mining Academy on a monthly basis. So once a month, we pick a topic, we present on that topic, similar to what we did here today, but they tend, although today was a little bit more feature oriented, they tend to be feature oriented, or maybe like Damien just did a session on risk, process mining for risk last month. Register for those, but there's about 34 or 35, I think now, recorded sessions that are deep dives into different areas there if you want to check those out. We also have something we call the use case series. What we recognized very early on is that process mining is a new muscle for a lot of our customers. So just like when you're learning a new exercise, it's helpful to have that little 2-minute, 3-minute, 4-minute video to show you how to do the exercise. This use case series like that, there's about 15 different recordings of like how to use process mining to do SLA breach analysis, how to use process mining to do multi-hop analysis, how to use process mining to do look for automation opportunities. So really helpful. In fact, one of our colleagues, Bilal, he just posted a use case series recording on these improvement opportunities. So instead of watching the entire 60 minutes here, you can now go and watch a little 5-minute or 6-minute. I think it actually was 9 minutes, the recording of kind of creating a couple of improvement opportunities. And then lastly, once a month, we do host an office hour session, open forum. We do the quick little process mining 101 before we get started. And as people are putting questions in, and then it's open forum for you to come ask your questions just like we're doing here. And we answer them live best we can.
Yeah, Dan, I saw a couple of people asking, hey, I have a use case I'm we're trying to figure out. Those are great sessions to come and ask those questions, right? We're happy to dig in.
Yeah, please do post them on the community, come to the office hours, reach out to your account team, or reach out to Damien and myself, Roz on LinkedIn. We love to be involved. If you couldn't tell, we're super passionate about this topic. It's always fun to dig in with our customers and learn about what they're trying to use process mining to solve for, and then we create improvement opportunities for them moving forward. Here's that guide to getting started with process mining. Like I said, just summarizing some of the common content or good content to get started with if they're new to process mining. And then lastly, I guess last chance for romance coming up on the top of the hour here. Any last minute questions that are coming in? Someone's asking, will the slides be provided? Absolutely. Once the recording gets posted on the site, we'll turn the slides into a PDF and we'll post them right there on the same page that you went to register for this. And then, we'll start linking to that page to other things. The process mining FAQ that's out there on the community site is also a good place to look for stuff and kind of like an index to find other content. Any last minute questions, comments?
Yeah, someone was asking for a link to the community, which I will pop in.
Yep, pop that in the.
Yeah. Put it both in the chat and in the
Oh, I think I brought this image back. I don't know. Oh, here we go. Actually, look at that. I should have these QR codes. How about I just leave those up there, Damien?
Yep.
I forgot that I put these things in there.
This is the one use case where we recommend taking a screenshot.
With that, though, content's done. Appreciate you joining. Look forward to seeing you on Academy sessions in the future, the office hours, or jumping on your instance together live. We love doing that too. Thank you for your time and happy mining, everyone.